How are you? And
Thank
how's
you.
the year started for Caliban so far?
Well, it's been good. Obviously, I'm sure you're aware we started the year with this massive Asley Dying tour that was cancelled. That whole thing was just completely spiraled out of control. The band has had a very long relationship to Asley Dying as a band for a long, long time, and it really broke our hearts to not be able to be able to see all these fans that have gathered over the years around this whole metalcore thing. And of course, it broke our hearts seeing Asley Dying decimate like that and just collapse. Regardless, it gave us more time to work on the album. We spent, I think, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of January doing another master of the album because we wanted to make the absolute best we could possibly do. So I think on the morning of the 9th of January, the album had to be delivered, and it was literally 9 o'clock in the morning on the 9th of January. Here you go.
So you kind of took all the time
We
you
took
needed
all the time. We took
or
all
you
the
had.
time we could. We had initially planned on handing in the album something like on the 1st of November, but that extra time we got did really help working on the album again and putting more work into it and more effort. So that was good. Ever since then, we're in slow preparations for the tour because we've got a new set, we've got new songs, we've got many, many very old songs as well, because we're feeling that it's fun to play them. So there's songs like, Beloved and the Hatred, I Will Never Let You Down, Nothing Is Forever, a lot of these really old songs, trying to give them some fresh paint, put them on stage live. Obviously, with me in the band now, we can take a lot more focus on the whole show and the whole singing thing and, putting together a show there. Mark is very busy with the whole live sound and the whole sound design and the how do we bring something that old onto stage and make it sound fresh and new, and lovely. So behind the scenes, we're very busy, and yeah, we've got our rehearsals every weekend. We've got production rehearsals. We're going to bring a big light show. We're going to bring a big. It's going to be an interesting show, and it's going to certainly take a deep dive into the archives of the Caliban catalog.
So because you are the new guy in the band, what's actually like your history with the band? Do you remember when you actually heard first time Caliban? Because they
Do you know
they they
what
are a
I do?
legendary band.
I heard Caliban for the first time when I was 14 years old, and I got the CD from a friend of mine that I still know today. That also back then he had given me an Ectomorph CD once. He had given me a Killswitch CD, a Caliban CD, and for that matter, actually, you being in Finland, a Children of Bodom CD.
Okay.
And he was into the whole this Children of Bodom hate crew thing, and that guy was just full of material. So he gave me this Caliban CD and said, "Listen to this. They're German." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." So I listened to that. It was just like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing. I've known this music for 21 years. Many of the songs that I remember the first rehearsal we had last year was just like, cool. Do you want to play that song? What, you can play that song? I'm like, yeah. So I remember all that, and yeah, then it was funny because over the years, I toured with other bands with Caliban. We got into contact a lot, met at festivals, and then eventually, in I believe August 2023, Mark phones me up. Now, Mark does not phone you up just to chat. He phones you up for a reason, and I knew the reason. This is going to be Mark. This is what he's going to say. Why would he phone me?
Okay.
And it was just like, you want to do it? I was like, yeah,
Okay.
it's
So it
time.
was instant like that
It
you
was,
sort of wanted to do it.
yeah.
But it is rather different to hop in a like band like Caliban from home. Like it's like totally new world in a way. So you need to kind of be a little bit prepared for that.
I was. I mean, I knew about how the band functions for years and how their dynamics are. I've always had contact with the individual members anyway. I knew what I was getting myself into, kind of thing. The What interested me was this whole process of we're making a new album, and I was like, interesting. I mean, to be a live player is the one thing, but to be the guy that can come into the songwriting world and seeing Caliban from a perspective of, well, Caliban's done millions of things over 25 years, whatever, but there are things that stick, and there's good albums, there's bad albums. That exists in a band, and that is okay. Because no band that's done 15 albums can deliver.
No,
it doesn't work like that.
No.
We were bonding a lot on the whole topic of metalcore itself, and now we have successfully completed an album which brings together so many different facets of what Caliban is and means.
Yeah, there is some kind of like old school vibes, but still in a way it's still like new school band.
Exactly, but it's like there's certainly in the guitar world an old school vibe of harmonized metalcore riffs and like just like the whole vibe that existed back then. It was great fun being able to fulfill my vision into this too, because I see Caliban from a very strange perspective, because not only was it one of the first proper bands I listened to and I learned all the material, I also saw what they did over the years and how they developed, and how albums like Gravity, or like then Paralyzed comes, and then you're like, oh yeah, so it's gone here and it's gone there, still metalcore. It's always been, Caliban has always been a little bit quirky when it comes to things like all bands are in drop tuning. What does Caliban do? No standard tuning. So different stuff happens in the guitar world, and so we've now kind of successfully created this amalgamation of Caliban's musical identity and redefined what Caliban really is. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Did you had like some kind of discussions before you hopped into the writing process that
very much
how does Caliban sound in 25?
That's the thing, like we came into the studio in January 24 or February 24 with a few demos. We changed the production team, we changed the studio, we got people involved, we changed the vibe, and me and Andy sat down and it was like, right, so what's this all about? And where do we start with this? And I'd come back from Scotland because I had family issues, and I just spoke to them and I said, guys, I'm not really in the best place here. I've had this and this happen. And then Andy goes like, oh, I can resonate with this because I've had similar experiences in the past. I came from a breakup situation. That all kind of went into the big pot of different lyrical content to go in there. So the result now is an album where I can tell you about every single song and how it developed and what it's about and how it felt. So it's a very honest album, and it's very raw, and it's hard to confront sometimes because we were in really dark places.
Do you need that sort of dark places to get the best music out? Because I had this sort of similar question with Jesse from Killswitch Engage, and he said to me that you sort of need to be in a dark place that you get some good out from it. So do you agree with him? Or
I will agree with Jesse. Obviously, I've known Jesse or his music, his arts, obviously for also a good 20 years now.
Yeah.
Jesse has something in common with Andy on this album now, and that is that Andy's vocals are not overproduced. It's very raw. Many of his takes are first take, because we would be in that studio for days and days, and we would sit there. I mean, to be honest, 50% of this album was recorded after 6 o'clock in the evening. It was a lot of late nights. We would sit there, maybe, in candlelight with a glass of wine and chat.
Okay.
And talk about how we're feeling and pour out our hearts just into the room, and everyone was able to resonate with a lot of these things that we were speaking about. Not necessarily personally that, I had that as well, but we kind of created a bit of a dark space for us within that room and within the whole structure of the studio, where we began to realize, oh yeah, these dark places exist. You cannot ignore them. And they do give you a lot of things to speak about.
Would you see yourself making an album if you would be in like completely happy place? Or do you feel that it would be like way more difficult to do?
We created a pretty dark space for ourselves after speaking about how we feel and what's going on in our lives. But Back from Hell is not just describing the dark place. It's exploring how to get outside of it again, and it explores the whole power and the empowerment of identifying the dark place and being able to say, yeah, it's shit, but I am on a transition out of this dark place. So yes, in a absolutely happy place, you could probably still make that kind of music, but you need to identify and put yourself into the position of where this lyrically actually takes place, because otherwise it will just be unauthentic.
So since you are the new guy in the band and this is your first album with the guys, so what was actually like your role in the writing process? And has that with you coming into the band, has that somehow changed? Was it like Mark back in the days who did most of the music, or how has it been?
Mark has always been, he still is a very prominent songwriter, power behind it. He's obviously the producer. He's very into the whole technicality of it, very into the guitar world, into the riffage. When we started out, I was simply just going to be singing choruses because that was kind of the starting point. And over time, I got more and more involved in, right, if I am singing these things, how do I find a way for the song to actually complement what I'm singing here? So we started cutting songs apart. For example, one song on the album is called Solace and Suffer. Solace and Suffer was an entirely different instrumental. And when we put the lyrics on top, and I remember exactly, like, we showed it to Mark, and was like, Mark, we've done a thing. Like, we've deleted half of his instrumental. And then he came into the studio and listened to it, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty good. What's the instrumental? It sounds familiar. And we were like, we took it from that, and he's like, oh, that's pretty good. So I started to get involved in a lot of the songwriting and the arranging of the songs, or into the discussions about the arrangement of the songs. And then at some point, because, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, I'm interested in pianos and violins and production and guitars and drums. I often actually took a guitar and started going like, this riff, will we not try it like this? Because then we have a simpler riff that leaves more space for lyrics. It doesn't, deflect so much from what's going on lyrically. Let's try and do this breakdown like this because maybe it's more bouncy, or things like that. And so gradually I got to get involved quite heavily in everything. And it's been great for me because it's very, very fulfilling as an artist to be able to affect these projects in such a positive way from so many different angles,
But I guess it's also for Mark that there's somebody who's like challenging him more, because he's done like 13 albums. This is already the 14th one, so I guess he's already pretty hard on himself. So it's good in a way if somebody tells you that, hey, you could do it this way or this way.
I never went into these conversations with the intention of trying to change his mind. I just tried to give perspective, to grow the pool of ideas and make suggestions where people would go, oh, that's actually a good idea. I think with these studio scenarios, you must not place your ego above the project.
Yeah.
And I've learned that in so many different surroundings. So if I'm hyped on something, then I'm simply an excited person. But if the majority turns it down, and by God, the majority has turned down a lot of my ideas, it still contributes to the process.
Yep. Yep.
So that kind of worked really well. And me and Mark can both now, look at this album, listen to this album and say, yes, we made the best.
So you have sort of turned all the stones when you have been making it in a way.
Wherever I've been able to touch something, I've been able to affect something within the group. So the group decisions have been solidified. And yeah, can say that.
In terms of being excited, you have pretty exciting guests on the album. So
we do. They're so good.
So how did that process like happen in a way? Were there like ready songs and then you were like, well, this is kind of missing something, we need to get somebody, or did you already had those guys in your mind when you were actually writing the tracks, or how did that happen?
There's different stories to each song, of course. Guilt Trip was a funny one. So with Guilt Trip, we had Lucas from Mental Cruelty. Now, Mental Cruelty's guitar player is a friend of Mark's, and they were just sending riffs back and forward and kind of, and this was long before I was even involved. So this guy has some participation in the song, and then they were chatting, and then someone said like, oh, this sounds like black metal and I'd love some goblin vocals, you know. Now it goes, ask our singer. So we're like, yeah. So they were on tour with Cradle of Filth. We went round in Cologne and recorded it in the tour bus and got the takes and went back to the studio and put them straight into the session. That was cool. With Johnny McBee, the Browning, we've known these guys. Caliban's known these guys for years, and I've known them separately for years as well because of this whole electrocore thing. And you kind of keep your bands in check, right? And when we were doing that song, it was like, we'd really love a feature, because sometimes when you write songs, you've got all your stuff, it's all good, but it feels like there's space for it.
Yeah, there's missing something.
It's missing somebody. And it was like, Johnny McBee is the kind of guy to do this whole roar, roar, roar. There's an American kind of inflection, a way of screaming, very enunciated. We sent him the song and it was like, are you into this? And he was like, yep, give me 20 minutes or something. And I was like, what? Okay, we were going to say like 2 weeks or something. And, you know, little did we know, like a day later, we got this fully edited track. He was like, this is what I'm feeling. Do you like it? And we were like, yep.
Okay.
So we had that. And then with Joe was funny because Mark and Joe, they've known each other. They know each other from well, touring, obviously, but also from Twitch. Okay. Because they're in the gamer thing. They'd been speaking online, and that kind of came apart when I believe the story is that Mark just showed him one of the songs, say, we've got one of this song, I'm enjoying this, what do you think, or something. And then it came about like, give me that. And he did a feature, and it was just like, fucking hell, how lucky are we that they just elevate these songs, you know, to another level. Is just like, bloody hell.
But Caliban is one of those like household names when it comes to this specific genre of music, that if somebody asks to name like 2 bands from Germany to this specific genre, it's gonna be Heaven Shall Burn and Caliban, like
it is
100 out of 100 times most likely.
It is, and that is a great compliment as well. You know, it's really Caliban holds such significance in the existence of this whole genre on this side of the pond. You know, it's crazy. And it's similar, like if you look to America, where you've got like Killswitch and Bleeding Through and all these metalcore household names from the OG metalcore phase, you know, and Caliban really is just one of them. They're just that's who they are, you know. It's nuts. It's crazy.
It is. But you will be also, after dropping the album, coming on a European run, and in May you will be actually also in Finland.
That's right. I haven't been in Finland since that day in Nosturi.
I think that show was like 2009 most likely.
It was 2012.
Okay.
So it's been 14 years. I get to go back to Finland.
What can actually the fans expect from the show? You said that you will be also dusting off some oldies. Or
we will. there's a lot of redefinition happening right now within the band. There's a lot of like, I think over the years, you kind of go through waves and phases, and Caliban is like, at the moment, like we had rehearsals, I think 2 weeks ago, and I just joked around and said, "Can you still play My Little Secret?" And then they all started jamming, and it was like, "That's still there, okay." So for the new set, we've decided to play "I Will Never Let You Down,"
Okay.
and "Beloved and the Hatred," "Nothing Is Forever," "Memorial."
Don't
And
reveal them all. They will.
well,
They
no,
will.
but just to give you, a bit of a. So we're taking a deep dive back into the world of metalcore as it is, and there was a phase where it felt like nobody wanted to listen to metalcore, but now it seems like the genre itself has just it's just reinvigorated. There's a whole new strength and power.
Yeah, but it was the same with like new metal, that when it came, that it was like first loved, and then it was hated, and now you see like Linkin Park selling out stadiums. So, and Korn is like more popular than ever. Deftones is most likely more popular than ever. System of a Down is selling out stadiums. Limp Bizkit is headlining pretty much every festival they play. So
It's crazy.
yeah,
I know, and I understand. I understand the waves of how that music genre works. I remember being in productions of albums in 2017, 18, 19, and it was all about this bring new metal back, riffs, simple riffs and stuff. Now you got bands like Alpha Wolf. I'm not sure if you remember this American band called Sylar that came back
yeah.
for a while. They disappeared again, but they were very strong on bringing the whole new metal vibe back. And I mean, now you've got all these like Tetrarch and
Yeah,
all
Tetrarch was
these,
the band name that I was gonna name next. They
that
are like
just do
combining everything.
exactly. They bring it all back together. It's still, they bring the heavy, but they still go, even Spineshank are back together doing
Yeah,
shows. It's
yeah.
just like,
That's
then it's
one
going to
one
be,
bucket list band for me. I've never seen them live, and I would love to see them live one day.
well, no, because you got to understand that back then, of course, Spineshank wasn't as big as we thought they were. I
No,
don't know. They maybe did 2, 3 European runs.
yeah,
I guess a lot of people missed them before their relevance became clear. It's the same with many bands. I'm really happy for Killswitch at the moment because they're doing very well. Their new album's greatly received. They got this big tour going on. That's all really nice. So the genre seems to be returning. There's pride in the musical heritage of what metalcore actually is, and
yeah,
I
and
can't wait.
bands like Bring Me the Horizon are like hugely popular, and also bringing like new audience, and is sort of like acting in a gateway band.
Well, look at Electric Callboy.
Yeah,
It's
that's a good example
insane.
as well.
It's insane. Look at Bad Omens. Look at Spirit Box. There's look at Bleed from Within. Look at Landmarks. Look at all these bands, novelists that are all kind of originated from the tag of metalcore, being able to bring this to so many new levels and
Yeah,
introduce so many people into this world. Sleep Token,
yeah, Tolkien is a
um,
big name.
I mean, it's just incredible. No one can tell me that the word metalcore is, a negative marketing for you. It's great. So
But
yeah,
that's how
Caliban.
music is. That or music. I don't know. Is it like more like critic sides or fan sides that it is like that? And there's like certain those phases where it's like popular and not anymore, and then again popular. And
I mean, even if you remember the deathcore tag, where maybe like 2008 or nine,
yeah,
where obviously
2010.
Bring Me the Horizon was around then, but then you did go on a tour with Suicide Silence, Carnifex, whatever. Then Bring Me the Horizon kind of left that realm, but bands like Carnifex just kept pushing through. Then you got like things like Iron Dissonance and then all these really heavy things that sometimes became too heavy. Some of them got softer, others stayed the same. Look at Whitechapel. I mean, Whitechapel back then, Father of Lies and In Exile, that album was just a really important album for the development of the genre. And here they are now, 15 years down the line, bringing back a new album, which is honestly so good.
Yeah, it is good.
And
It is
it
good.
could it could be from back then. I'm loving the pride of it. There's a sense of pride in it and confidence. And I think that goes throughout the whole scene. It's very healthy.
Agree. A lot of good, great bands making great albums.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. So to get back to your question, Caliban's really happy. We have In Heart's Wake that we're also, to mention that, also, the one of the important bands from the early Australian influx into this whole metalcore thing. So, we're really happy about that. Then we've got Cabal that also, they've been going for years, but they hold significance as well because they play on a lot of the deathcore stuff that sounds very, very technical and very modern produced. I really like that. And then you've got stuff like Assemble the Chariots, where I'm like, yeah, man, because that's bringing back a whole set of memories. If it goes down the road of the whole black metal related Lorna Shore, mental cruelty thing, disembodied tyrant, all that stuff. I think we have a great package and we're going to have a lot of fun.
I agree, and I will join you for the fun most likely in May.
Please do.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to me, and all the best for the release of the upcoming album as well as for the upcoming European run. Anything you want to say to the fans?
Thank you very much. Well, what I'd love to say to the fans is, first of all, thank you for taking me in as a new member. Let us celebrate the genre with pride and with strength. The community is enormous and it's big, it's open, it's tolerant, and it's a nice place, a nice space to be in. There's no hatred, everyone's accepted. There's no racism. We don't buy into all this political bias that's happening, especially in the States and in Germany for that matter. Everybody is welcome and everybody has a safe space at a Caliban show. That's the way it is,
Agree with that. It's way better than it was like 10 years ago.
It's better. And, fuck this gatekeeping genre bullshit. We're all here for a reason. Everyone has limited time on Earth. Stop fucking around, everyone. Let's just go and enjoy ourselves and have fun and make connections to people and create moments.
Agree.